Good morning, John. How are you?
Oh, good morning. Um, Doing great. Uh, just just so you know, I was up late last night, and we had UFOs flying along the horizon, and we had very interesting. We'll talk about it in a little bit, but today we've got a broadcast with our friend Laura and Bill coming on, and we're gonna we're gonna be talking about a few things today.
Well, I'm really excited to hear that. It's been good. We've all had our own travels lately, and we're all today we don't have Stan on because he's speaking at an event in McMinnville promoting his book, The Paranormal Ranger. And so we're excited for him. We want to excuse him. Once again, he's out there promoting himself with his new book. And I'm excited to have our guests too, as well. And I've been in travel, so we'll discuss what is going on in the world I live in, and as well as you, John. It was great to hear that you had that experience. So now we'd like to introduce Laura and Bill to come on. Hi, Laura.
Hey, Michelle. Hey,
Hi,
John.
Bill.
And hey, Bill. I'm really good. I'm really pleased to be here. This is fabulous.
And I also,
Yeah, it's good seeing you again, Laura. We hadn't seen you in a while. Laura is coming to us from the UK, so it's quite a bit of difference in time. And of course, Bill is in his element over there with all his electronics and everything lighting up the background.
yes. But John, that's really interesting that you had that experience last night.
Yeah, just to let our audience know, it started out, my son was coming home from work and he saw what appeared to him to be a column of light, maybe a few miles away as he was driving out in the desert. And this light looked like if you took a very, very powerful flashlight and just shined it from the ground up in the air. And he actually got a picture of it, which I don't have. Otherwise, I would have uploaded it. But after he got home, well, one of my in-laws called up from down in Tucson and said that this phenomenon was happening on the White Mountains, Apache Reservation. It was happening up in Tuba City, which is about 130 miles away. And it was happening down in Phoenix area. And reports were coming in from all over that this column of light was being seen, and people were asking, is it a rocket launch of some kind? And it's my experience that when you see rocket launches, the winds in the upper atmosphere will take the contrail and twist it and warp it, and pretty soon you'll be looking at, looks like some kind of a ribbon that's twirled around, and that's what you see reflected. Now this was about what, 12 o'clock, 12:30 a.m. And we took off in my daughter's car. We went out to look for this column of light, but it was no longer there. The internet was full of pictures of this same column of light. And the only time I've ever seen something like that was when in 1984, I had a large cigar-shaped craft that was flying over. I was about 200 yards away, and I could see a column of light shining down from the tip of this craft to the ground. Afterwards, we saw some lights on the horizon toward the west, toward the northwest. And we stayed out there, and I had a PVS-7 night vision equipment. and you could see as many as 8 dots that were crawling across the sky. Some of them would fluoresce and get brighter, and then they'd fade out again. And they were flying from the southwest toward the northeast, and we watched them for about an hour.
Wow.
We just kept seeing more and more. My daughter took the night vision. She had her phone on there, and hopefully later on we'll get some of that footage on the program. But it's not available at this time.
Mm-hmm.
But I have it on my phone. She did transfer it to me.
Now, John, I pulled a photo off the net. This has nothing to do with what you seen last night, but I'm curious if this is something similar in its appearance.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what they saw.
Wow.
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 You know, John, we experienced that on Skinwalker Ranch.
Oh, really?
Yes, the second homestead the mountain would light up, and then I do have a black and white photo, which I don't have available because we're just sharing these things as they come. But I do have a black and white photo of one too as well, and so maybe in a later show we can get those photos on and share.
Yeah, very, very interesting things going on. Like I said, we watched it for quite a while. I do have some video, but we're going to have to get it uploaded so
Okay.
everybody can see it. So that'll probably be a future episode here. But I've got about maybe 4 video segments of these lights in a night vision scope. So everything looks kind of green and a little bit fuzzy, but it's there.
Oh, that's going to be really interesting when you come out with that and upload that.
Yeah, I'd
Yeah.
love to see that. That would be fun.
Yeah.
You know, it's really interesting as we see this phenomena, UFOs, UAPs is what they're now being referred to. We're finding that more and more people are having them lately and having different experiences with phenomena. And I think I've told this story before. When I was in southern Utah, I was down there for business, and one of my coworkers was, kidding around, and we were walking down the Bird Trail. It's down in Escalante area, and just kept saying, it would be cool if a UFO showed up, because they had an experience as a young boy, and I was like, you shouldn't say that. Keep saying that, and he kept saying it over, just teasing, making fun, and trying to, kind of get my feathers up. And there were like 3 or 4 of us. And as we were walking back to our units, guess what shows up? A UFO with a light that shone down right on us. And it did not feel good. And I ran like the Dickens. I'm sorry, every man for themselves. And that's not my personality. I'm a person and leave no man behind, but I left them behind.
They always say that when you're running, you only have to be faster than the slowest person in the group.
Oh my gosh. But now, Laura, I'm really interested to hear a little bit about Laura, because this is the first time I've spoken to you and become acquainted with you. And we had a conversation prior to starting the show about your shaman background. And I find it fascinating, your connections that you've had, and you were talking about the ley lines. Can you talk about some of the things that you experienced over there in the UK, especially patients that had this type of energy, and you make that connection to it?
Yeah, well, I mean, we're known, aren't we, over here? Wiltshire is absolutely the place of crop circles, which is one thing we were discussing earlier, Bill. And you were asking me what the energy was like when you walk. It is totally different, and maybe many of the audience have experienced that as well. And the other thing is places where, like Avebury, we were talking about, and Stonehenge, definitely you can feel the different sort of energy. as you walk into these places, if you're sensitive to it. And another place is Glastonbury. But one of the things I was sort of saying to Bill in my training with, I trained with Andrew Bartzis, the galactic historian. So first of all, I need to clarify, I'm not claiming to be a shaman. I have learnt and practiced shamanic practices, ceremonies, things like that, because I understand, and I've learnt the hard way too, that when you're working with energy, you, one, have to be very sensible and very respectful. I would call myself an ancestral medium too, because feel very connected to ancestors. I do talk to spirit. I've had some wonderful experiences, mostly good, with spirit as well. So I do practices and I teach people self-empowerment through using shamanic practices. But there's no way I claim it any more than that. So yes, moving on to what we were saying, Bill. So there's places in the UK, and as Bill pointed out, what a history we have over here, and many places. And you brought Rendlesham Forest up to me as well. I've never been. I have been to other places, like we were saying, like Avebury, where you definitely notice the change in energy. And I've always learned through the guy I trained with, Andrew Bartzis, the galactic historian, that some of these places are not actually meant to be lived in. Now, that was a shock to me. So places like Avebury are meant to be visited and meant to be pilgrimages, because the energy is quite intense when you get there. So it can send you a bit ungrounded. Not saying doolally. I wouldn't like to accuse anybody in Avebury of being doolally, but it can put a lot of pressure on your whole system. So I've spent a day in Avebury, but people do live there. People conduct businesses there and so on. The same as Glastonbury. My understanding was it's a place to visit, but not a place to stay, because you do get a real mix of energies. Now, I wouldn't like to live in any of these places because, you know, probably like you guys here, I'm reasonably sensitive to energy, and I want to keep my energy field as sort of as a raised frequency as possible. And I think that, yeah, it's great. Visit these places and you can have some phenomenal experiences there too. Bill asked about meditating in these places, which I have done. I have meditated in these places, but we also said, you know, you can meditate anywhere that you can connect to your ancestors, get the protection that you need, know how to invoke, you know, what you need to get your protection and to keep yourself in a safe place. Because one thing I think I always appreciate Jonathan saying, and I think this is very important, is you've got to be respectful of the unseen world that you're dealing with. Absolutely. You can't, we talk about coming in equal exchange, non-competition, non-hierarchical order. We talk about arriving on an equal footing with them, but it's a footing of respect. And I'm not talking about whether it's dark or light energy or any of that. I'm just talking about an unseen world, because in the way I think of it, if I'm walking onto new land, I will always make an offering to the ancestors there, things like that. And it's a respect that's been lost and is not practiced anymore. And then people wonder why they move into a house, for example, and they just don't gel with the energies there. They don't understand why things go wrong. Whereas making a simple offering, maybe on the land, would make all that difference to get the ancestors on your side. So,
See,
go on.
The reason I bring this up, because with Michelle, Jonathan, and Stanley, being on the reservations, a lot of this is sacred land, sacred, where it's been ceremonial, burial, whatever it is. And they can speak more about this because they obviously know a lot more than I do. But is there a correlation that possibly what's going on in the UK, like a Stonehenge location, also has that sacred ceremonial ancestry history there, like the indigenous population has here?
Absolutely, there is. And that is to be respected anywhere, you know, Avebury or so on, that is to be respected, that is there. And if you're going to entangle with those energies, again, you want to go in respectfully. So many, whatever you believe these places were, you're right, Bill. There is a degree of sacredness about these places that has to be recognized. Because otherwise, I think you do get kickback from the unseen world. And I've certainly got kickback from the unseen world. I've tried to go into, we have a local town called Arundel. And if I tell you, it's got a Roman Catholic cathedral, it's got a priory, it's got a castle, a Roman Catholic school. Everything is on this hilltop, and it's also an 8-way energy node crossover. And I decided in my naive days, when I was early learning, to go and do full ceremony on a hill next to the castle. So I did my wonderful ceremony, and I planted a crystal, and I called in the directions, and I did get protection. But as I walked away, I tripped and fell very badly and really injured my leg.
Wow.
And I know that I was pushing it too much in an area that, although I had shown respect for the ancestors, I'd not shown enough respect by actually doing a ceremony on their land. So I needed to back off, do ceremony somewhere else. So I did learn the hard way, because it's like you wouldn't go and push yourself in the 3D world. You wouldn't push yourself into somebody else's land. And it's the same in the unseen, isn't it? It's respect for the ancestors of that land. So, yeah, I've learned the hard way too.
You know, Laura, your ancient ancestors, especially in Stonehenge, were the Druids, and they were a very solstice people. They believed in the solstice, the calendar. They did their own ceremonies as well. Do you feel like the Druids were like, do you recognize them being your part of your ancestry, or were they just a group that lived within that civilization at that time?
Oh, no, absolutely, because I'm in the UK. Yes, I do. And I've studied some Druidry, and I've looked at paganism, and I feel very connected when I go to these places. And I love to visit them. And yes, there's probably some of their take on things that I have taken on. But I think because I trained with Andrew and he was trained by Native Americans, I picked up and learnt what he taught me as a shaman. So I learnt very much the Native American way. And then I have another take on it, that for me, our soul might have had hundreds and hundreds of lives. And I feel maybe I've had a Native American past as well. So although my DNA is, UK and wherever else it's from, because I've had many, many dreams of being a Native American, I'm not claiming to be one. I just feel a strong tie. And, that's another interesting connection, isn't it? The journey of the soul. We've probably been everything and everywhere all over the world. We've had all these different lives, but sometimes there's a life that just feels more special to you, or you get some wonderful messages through in dreams. But then, I can connect to trees in the same way too. I mean, I've done prayers with trees at a local sacred site, and in my dream a couple of nights later, the trees actually spoke to me and said, "Can you bring us more messages of peace?" And that's
really
a beautiful
cool
thing to have happen to you on your journey. And all the time it enhances your belief in an unseen world, but an unseen world that actually is going to be there will also to support you too, because that we talk about the paranormal and the ghosts, and some of that could be slightly fearful. And again, I've learned from both you, John and Stan, as well as what I've learned myself, is that you go into these things as a neutral observer almost. You go in without attachment to anything. So you don't go in to judge. The information comes to you, flows through you, or whatever, but you don't have an agenda with anything. You go in respectfully, as we said, but you go in on a neutral basis. And I think when you start practicing what I've learned as sacred neutrality, which I know you guys do, I think it makes you able to be more open to the information that's coming at you. because you're not going in any way polarized.
Well, speaking of messages, Bill shared early on, while we're in the studio before the show started, a really powerful message that came to him. So, Bill, go ahead and share, please.
First of all, I really, because Art Hardy has been on for the last few weeks, Medicine Man, and we had great conversations with him. And I have the utmost respect for him. And when he said, Bill, if you ever come down this way, you got to come to the res for a week, being observed. Do you know that is like so incredible to be invited to even, it's an honor, first of all, to even have that type of an invitation to go to the reservation. But it's like, the reason I bring this up, Laura, is because you're going to all these sites and you're doing it in a neutrality way. You're just going in there as an observer. And then what I would say is you're allowing the energy just to come to you. Whatever it is, you're making that connection. And I've had, as I'm going to, what Michelle referred to, I had an experience in this clip, and it happens to me often, where I can go somewhere and I get a vibe, a feeling, whether good or bad, but mostly it's good. I don't feel dread often, but this place gave me a vibe. And John, just to give you a little, and Michelle, did you see the clip before we started, Michelle? You did, right?
I was on there.
I made a joke, and I shouldn't be doing that. And I'm starting to realize I shouldn't be joking around when I'm out somewhere doing something like this. But John, I made a joke about Blair Witch. Like, I feel like it's Blair Witch, and you got to see what happens right after. So let me play the clip, and then you guys can tell me your feedback.
We got something close to us. There's control, and there's something very close to us over here. It always comes from the right, always.
Heidi, reach in the back of my backpack zipper and get the off.
Which zipper?
No, not the main, the back one.
Okay. Oh, right. And get what?
The off spray.
Yeah, there's more of this.
Because we're in the woods. We're in the woods now. We got to spray this poison ivy too. And all right, I'm going to put my camera down a second. When something happens, it's almost like Blair Witch.
Yeah, the mozzies are out in force.
Yeah, you can see, you can feel them.
Yeah.
Come on.
Twice.
Yeah.
Twice it says my name. We did not hear it. It only came up on the camera. After I uploaded the video and checked it out, that's when we all heard the voice. We didn't hear that voice. If we would have heard that voice, you would have seen all of us freak out like, who said that? So there is the energy. You're there to make the connection with the energy. And I learned a lesson. I'm never, when I go on an investigation or like something like this, I will never joke. I have to keep that in mind to be as respectful as possible. Joking is not the way. You're there for a reason. It's a serious one. But I did it as a joke because, we're all there. We're all hanging out together. And look what happens.
I don't know, Bill. I think spirit actually does like to have fun.
Yeah.
That you can be respectful.
Yeah, we are.
And as you are, and absolutely have fun. So I'll tell you how spirit talks to me. I don't get white feathers. I get things. So spirit knows it's with me and so on. I was washing my windows at home one day, and I couldn't find. We call them a scraper. So you go down, you pull. Yeah, you seen the scrapers that you have the water down.
Yeah, squeegee.
I could not squidgy. I couldn't find it anywhere. I thought, right, I've had enough. I'm going down the cafe for a coffee. It's one I do go to regularly on the beach. As I walked in, the waitress came up to me. She held up a scraper, a squeegee, and she said, "You left it." Quite seriously, she said, "You left this when you were last in." I said, "That's not mine. I don't do, so I'm not a window cleaner. It's not." She said, "I thought it's something you carried around with you." I said, no, it's not mine, darling. Sorry. And she smiled. She was being perfectly serious. Spirit brought me what I needed at the time. But it was a funny thing. It's not, as I say, I wasn't getting a white feather floating out of the sky. I was getting what I needed at the time. Mm-hmm. So how does, only Spirit would know that, wouldn't it? Who else would know? From my house to the cafe, and I'm given what I need. So I just think it's fun. I see that as fun. And I say, thanks guys, or thanks ancestors, or whatever. But things like that happen to me quite a lot. And sometimes, you must all find this, sometimes you get them one thing after another, and it's like you're in divine flow. The doors open for you. Literally, the doors open ahead of you, don't they? And everything flows. And I love that. And I love that divine connection, that divine flow. And it's fun. And I think you don't sometimes have the smile on your face as well. You can miss things.
I want to hear all three. Since you just explained your experience, Laura, I want to know if John and Michelle ever had like that kind of situation, or even like a pranky, like they're messing with you.
Yes, I had one yesterday. So you were saying that but for me, every time I'm in my bathroom, sitting on the throne, something happens. I don't know if that's an area. I'm going to start looking into that. All of a sudden, I was doing my business. Sorry, it has to be so candid. I heard Michelle. And I said, I did not leave the door open. There's no one home. And I immediately finished, and I whipped the curtain, showered open, and no one was there. And I went, oh, here we go.
So it was like loud that you thought it was like right there.
But why is it always on the toilet?
Yes.
But I have these experiences, but that was my prank yesterday.
You should definitely check out.
And that's
There's a lot of times that these things can have a sense of humor.
Yes.
Me and Stan, for years, ever since he's had all these coins show up, we've been joking off and on about this for years. And I keep saying, well, if it's going to throw coins, it could at least throw us a 1943 copper penny. And
that's so true.
And just for everybody's information, 1943 was during World War II. And all the pennies, the planchets, were made out of steel. And if you can ever find a copper one, there were some misprints made. Those copper pennies can be worth up to $600,000.
Wow.
And so we said, man, at least you could send us a copper 1943.
Yeah.
And we were camping with a friend of ours named Steve up in Canyon de Chelly. And late one night, Stan has a coin fall in his tent, and he hears it go thump on the floor. Little pup tent. And it wakes him up. He looks at it, and he brings it to breakfast the next morning, and he shows it to us. And I look at it. It's a wheat cent. It's labeled 1943, and it looks like it's copper. And I'm over there going, wow, we've got a 1943 copper. We're going to have to test it. The only way to test them is you use a magnet. If it sticks to the magnet, it's a steel penny. And if it doesn't stick, then it's copper. Mm. And so we had to wait till we came out of the canyon the next morning. And so we waited, we got out. He has the penny, gives it to me, didn't look at it or anything, just had it in his pocket. And we look at it, it's now 1972 penny. And we're just thinking, oh man, this thing really likes to joke with you, you know.
Wow, that's wild.
So I mean, it could have waited till we cashed it in at least, you know. So there is a spiritual side to this, and in our modern society, we want, you know, we're always told everything has to match up with science. It has to be completely science, no spirituality involved. That part of it doesn't count. And one of the things that I've noticed, I watched a TV show the other night. We won't say who it was, but the main emphasis was try to scare people, to create that emotion of fear. And so everything was designed. If you turned off the sound, a lot of it was just the music in the background that was making everything, you know, sound otherworldly. And it heightens all that. And what I've known for years and years, one of the axioms that I live by is, can you look at a situation without naming it? Naming it, making it a word, causes fear. And so you go into these things and you don't name what you're looking at. You react to it. You take care of business. You go to an accident scene, and I've been on many, you know, probably over 1,000 accident scenes. And you have people literally with traumatic amputations or you know, wounds on their bodies, things like that, bones sticking out. And if you look at it and you initially, a lot of people will freeze because they're putting words to that situation, and then suddenly they can't function because of the shock. And I can remember some of the first accidents that I went to, seeing dead bodies, and the best way I could describe it was that it felt like my brain jumped inside my head. It was just that traumatic. Suddenly you saw something and it just stuck with you. And later on, you realize that if you've got injured people that need your help and you freeze up, you're no good to them. So you had to kind of suppress that and not name it, just get to the scene and grab your gear and do what you needed to do. And as I went along, I found out that I needed more training. So I put myself through EMT training for about a whole month straight and got licensed. And I was able to save a lot of lives by working on people. Doing that out in the middle of nowhere, in the rocks, in the cactus, and you know, in the forest, and just taking care of them until an ambulance got there. So, and a lot of times that would take more than an hour.
I have to ask you now a follow-up to what you just said. When you have all this, because it is a negative energy, everything that's going on around you is a negative situation. It's almost like you're absorbing all that negativity, the trauma. What do you do to release it? Because we all have to have that release point, you know, like to how we deal with situations. Like for me, a form of my meditation is what I'm going to do after we're done here is go on a bike ride through the woods and just, you know, because I'm under a lot of stress. A lot of us are. And that's my way to release stress. So what would be, and I'll ask this to all of you, what is your way of dealing with negative energy and how do you release it?
Okay, for me, my training told us that there is a sine wave that happens, this idea of stress and adrenaline. And when you get to a scene, this adrenaline level in your body goes up. And so you almost, in some cases, you have superpower. And I've seen it before. I've been able to hold up a truck where the jack broke and it was leaning in, ready to crush somebody. And I was able to hold that truck up. Messed up my back, but for just a few seconds for that guy to get out of there. Now, what happens afterwards is if you don't deal with the physical side of that, that stress, that adrenaline can create lactic acid in your body.
Mm-hmm.
And lactic acid is not good because it builds up and it causes muscle tightness, it causes cramps, it causes a whole range of negative physical symptoms. Now, when I'd go on a hot call afterwards, I might be on the side of the road parked out in the middle of nowhere doing jumping jacks. Just something physical to get that lactic acid out of my body. Now, when I get home, there's a spiritual side again, where I would smudge and pray for protection of what I've seen and pray for the people that I worked on. And yeah, there were fatalities and things like that. But you do the best you can. And to this day, I still have people coming up to me and saying, "Do you remember me?" And I tell them, "No, I really don't." And they tell me, "There was an accident at this location and you saved my life."
Wow.
Or a car fell on me and I was pinned under there and you came and jacked it up and got me to the hospital. So things like that happen all the time. And like I said, there is a spiritual side that I'm aware of. And we grew up with this being Native Americans, that there's always a connection to spirituality and you can't ignore it.
Correct. I'll go next. It's really interesting. John says we are Native and we are very connected to the land. And I like the fact that, Bill, you go on bike rides. I used to do that in my younger days, and I was a cyclist as well. This particular time, I was in a country that's ecologically balanced, the agriculture, the keeping everything in balance. And for the first time, I had an experience where we're so busy. You and I have spoken about that earlier on with Laura. I'm constantly traveling for my work. And so in this instance, I was able to get out into the jungle. I mean, it was a real jungle. I was dealing with jaguars, tapirs. I mean, the whole kit and caboodle, but this is virtually untouched land. And my most favorite part of this trip was sitting in natural springs over the rocks. And I felt like I had Mother Nature giving me a water massage. That took all the stress away from my everyday life. And I sat there and I thought, this is how the indigenous people did it. They used the elements to relieve their stresses or whatever they were dealing in their probably ancient lives or, current lives, whatever, is reconnecting back to Mother Earth and feeling of her essence, because I left with such a positive feeling. And there are positive ions in water if you can find the source that creates that. And I was stress-free the rest of the time I was there. And so for me, water is one of the elements that helps me distress.
Wow.
And just so everybody understands, ions, negative ions are good for you. This is the smell that you get, the ozone smell after a lightning storm, and they're actually good. Positive ions, on the other hand, are not good for you. They create what they call a hyperserotonin effect. And that effect can give you headaches, migraines. It can give you a sore throat. It can make you feel like you have a flu.
Mm.
And in one of my jobs that I retired from, we had these fans, ion fans, because the material that we were working with had to be static free. And so these fans would blow both negative and positive ions. And people would think that these fans were personal fans, that you put them on your face and it blows on you and makes you more comfortable.
Mm.
And they would complain about headaches, about migraines. They feel like they were getting sick. And I started looking up this whole phenomenon and found study after study that universities had done on the effects of positive ions. And you can just look it up look up positive ion effects and on the internet, and you'll see a whole listing of them. And when I started telling people, don't put these fans on your face, and these headaches would go away and these sore throats would go away. And they didn't understand why. And I'd print off a page of this study and hand it to them and say, here you go. But the higher ups just said, don't worry about it. So I figured,
I
okay,
wonder
they're in
if
charge.
it was a recreation of ionic behavior, because when you're out in nature, John, I did not feel those effects after my experience, but it also probably intertwines with energy. So maybe energy was a part of that experience I had, but it was something I experienced in a very positive way. And I maybe contextually speaking that, you're getting artificial ions, and then those studies are based on scientific methodologies and stuff. So, but nature has a way of creating our own stress relievers.
Yeah.
Well, it's just like grounding.
Yeah,
Take your shoes off and put your toes in the dirt.
exactly.
And stand there for a half hour, and it'll
Yeah.
rejuvenate you.
Yeah.
And I actually have a grounding mat
Mm.
on the bottom of my bed, so when I
Mhm.
sleep, my feet are grounded,
Mm.
and that helps me. So there's scientifically there's ways of dispelling, because we live in a modern world. We have
Right.
all these energies around us, cell phone signals,
Yep.
radio waves, whatever you get in your vehicle, there's all kinds of electronics operating.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we walk around and we wear shoes.
Mm.
And a lot of times those tennis shoes are rubber or some kind of material that insulates you from the ground.
Mhm.
And I've always been told, take your shoes off and put your feet on the ground. And a half hour of that a day will really, really help with your spiritual sense and that energy sense to dispel a lot of the energy that you've accumulated.
Mhm.
Exactly.
And the ocean's so good for those negative ions as well. Take a walk next to the sea. The sea here. Over with you, it's the ocean, but over here, it's the sea.
Yeah.
You're right about walking in nature and getting that reconnection, getting out of the city, and any of the elements can be cleansing. The wind can be cleansing. You could do something called wind bathing and talk to the winds of the four directions and ask them to cleanse you. If you want to go that far, you can use the sun to recharge you. The sun recharges our batteries naturally. You can, as Michelle says, water is a wonderful cleanser. Even if you go to the pool down the road, water is an absolute cleanser. Or have a fire, and I don't mean a candle. One candle is
campfire.
Get a fire going that's really hot, and put all that negative energy into the fire. And if you can't get out and do any of those things, this is a really good one, is have a salt bath. So 2 or 3 handfuls at least of like Epsom salt or a crystal salt, not a table salt, in a bath, stay in there at least half an hour until the water goes cold. I've done that many times when I've been visiting my parents in hospital. I always come home and get followed home with whatever ancestors or ghosts are patrolling that particular hospital. You pick them up in the lift in the hospital, in the elevator. You know, you get them there, and you know they've come home with you because you feel rubbish, and you know they're there. So you get in a salt bath. And you rinse it off afterwards, otherwise it makes your skin dry. And if you haven't got a bath, get a salt scrub and put it in all the crevices. Shower on for 15 minutes. Again, the cleansing of water. And then, yes, smudging, or as I would call it, saging. And I have been in a very bad place with energies around me. I would call myself quite haunted at that time. And what I did is I had a very small bathroom, just had a toilet in actually, and a window. Went in there, lit the sage stick, got it really, really thick. I mean, really thick, and stepped into it and stayed in there quite a while. And then eventually opened the window, opened the door, and cleared it all. And I felt great afterwards. But for me, it was a bit more than I might do before a fire. I actually stood in this amount of thick sage smoke, because sometimes, especially the energies I was dealing with, was so dense and so heavy and so detrimental to me at the time. I had to have a quick fix it. So it's good, you know, if you can't actually go anywhere or get out, you can do something like that. And you can be really inventive with the way you do things. So after my father passed, I was bringing a lot of his stuff in my car. And I thought, how am I going to clean all this? So what I did was, it was all loaded in the back. I lit a sage stick in the car as I was driving along, probably not recommended. But of course, the air through the front windows took all this smoke away from me and over all the furniture at the back. So by the time I got home, I'd actually cleansed quite a lot of the furniture. But there are times you have to be, if you're going to keep your energy field clear, because that's what you want to do, because that's how you're being of best service, isn't it? So it is like a responsibility, isn't it, guys? It's a responsibility, because it's a spiritual hygiene thing. You don't want to hand over or dump this dirty energy on others. So you do have to be inventive in this modern society, because the ancient ones could walk on the ground and do all the things you said. And we can't do that, especially in a high-rise block of flats. So you do have to find ways that you take on that mantle of responsibility of spiritual hygiene, and don't dump it on other people, because we know, a lot of people do that. And that's in unawareness. It's not a blame. That's just in unawareness. They're not aware of their own energy field. They're not aware of what they're picking up, and they're not aware of how to cleanse it.
We got about 5 minutes. I must ask all of you something, if we can, a quick response from all of you. In my backyard, I have a pool above ground, and I have a lot of praying mantises.
Oh, wow.
So one day I'm laying in my pool, and there's one right on the railing, and it's looking at me. So I went up and looked at it. It was like if it was looking into my soul.
I love that.
Now, either because it was like, I'm not afraid of you, and you're not afraid of me.
Right.
There was that connection. Do you have? It's because we're talking about elements, but as far as living things around us, making the connection with that. Do any of you have a quick story that you can share? Quick.
Well, having just returned from an ecological island that I was on, most people don't get to go on, go to the place I went. It was literally an island. There were lizards in an earth home. We stayed in an earth home. It was Verbo, and it was beautiful. I mean, everything was connected to Mother Earth. And I slept in that. It was lovely. And there was lizards coming into the house. And so one of my girlfriends, she says, Michelle, come here. And we had a giant spider in another home. We had 2 or 3 homes that we moved around to. And I said, no, that one's poisonous. We got to get rid of that one. So I took a broom And they jump, by the way. They jump. So we kind of had to stun it and had to grab a cup and, and stun it and shake it a little bit. And it was stunned. Yeah. And so we made a deal with the lizards, the geckos, and said, you can come in, but don't chirp too much because you're loud. And we had that communication with we had a black cat. Most people are suspicious about black cats, superstitious. And it killed a bird for us because it liked us so much. And those kind of interactions occur when you're feeling positive in your world. Nature wants to commune. I didn't want to be with the crocodiles. And I had an experience where we overlooked a lake, and that's full of crocodiles, and the other side's the ocean. So we were kind of wedged between two water bodies of water. I saw something, and I could not identify it. I thought it was somebody in a kayak, but it floated on the water straight up, and it was big. And I kept thinking, is that Nessie? Locked in somewhere, and I was trying to focus, but our only phones can go only 10x. I don't know what it was, but it was very stealth. And manatees are there as well. And I thought, this is really cool to interact with nature. The only thing I wanted to see was a jaguar, but it didn't happen. I saw one on video from somebody else. But nature knows its elements. And people goes, didn't you fear being in the waterfalls and having the animal lives come in, because there was all kinds. I said, no snakes, nothing. You fear it. If you fear something, it's going to defend itself.
But you can't live life in fear.
That's exactly.
No.
Exactly.
And one of the things that's really important in this conversation to realize is anytime that you're having these thoughts and you're trying to clear energy, we call it prayer. But a simpler word is intent. That you have to have the intent that something is going to take place, that this is going to clear this energy, that you're going to have protection.
Exactly.
And if you don't have the intent, then you're just going through the motions of having the smoke come out and having the smoke go over you. But there's nothing attached to that, no spiritual side. And when you see these TV shows, the thing that occurred to me is that they are trying to elicit a fear response in people.
Yeah.
They're trying to make you scared.
Oh yeah.
And it's provoking. And if you go into a situation and you try to provoke things, you're going to get a negative energy response.
Agreed.
100%. I agree, John.
Yeah, and you go in with that heart space as well, which is something, again, modern society's got disconnected from the heart. And all us guys here teach about having that absolute sacred connection with your heart-spaced awareness, because your heart knows. And when you use your heart mind for things, not just your mind, and you bring that in, and then you've got that unconditional love, which is attached to everything you do. Even when you're clearing energy, you can use unconditional love. I mean, it's not always enough, but if it's part of it, and that's how you operate, that has that inbuilt intention within it that you're carrying. When you connect to your heart, it has that inbuilt connection of unconditional love to go with what you're doing.
Yeah, we swam with the sharks.
Oh,
in a barracuda. Yeah, it was really cool.
Well, we're out of time. But
That was fun.
I can't believe it's fast. We got to do this again. But thank you, Michelle and John, for having me on with you. And Laura, it was awesome meeting you and getting to know you more and before we were on the air.
Yes, it was. Thank you. That was such an awesome show. It was such fun. Thank you so much, all you guys. It's been wonderful.
Michelle, what do we got coming up after this?
Well, John and I are going to be heading to Toronto, Canada, along with Stan. We're going to be doing some investigation and be a part of the speaker conference called Bigfoot. He Will Heal You conference 2025. This is Judy Sackene is going to be on our next show this upcoming Wednesday, and and that's what's happening. And we wish the best for Stan where he's at today.
Yes. Yeah, I love
Thank you,
Stan.
Laura, for coming on. We're going to have you on some more.
Loved it. It's great fun. It's always great.
Bill, thank you for being on. And John, as always,
Yeah.
it's
and thank you for all our audience for tuning in, and
Yes.
we just appreciate the heck out of you.
absolutely.
Yeah, we do. Thank you so much.